you will, say hi to Ken, and let's let Ken introduce himself. Ken, are you there?
Oh, I certainly am, and I apologize for not being a little earlier, but you know how it goes when you're trying to feed a whole bunch of horses.
No, I wouldn't know what it's like. I have heard that there's a lot of starving horses in the world, but you've obviously taken on a few horses. Well, introduce yourself.
Okay,
introduce yourself, because this is going to be on YouTube. Go ahead.
Okay.
Introduce
my
yourself.
name is Ken Johnston. Yeah, that's with a T. Johnston. Because it'd be amazed how many people say, I contacted you and I left you messages and you don't even get back with me. And I say, well, let me guess. You put it to Ken Johnston, didn't you? He said, yes, I did. Put a T in my name and I'll answer you. Anyway, I was one of the original 4 civilian astronauts in the Apollo program with the Grumman Aerospace Corporation. They hired us to test the lunar module in the vacuum chambers at Johnson Space Center, and then turn around and help train the NASA astronauts so that they could fly it and go to the moon. So I was very active in that, and for the longest period of time, I thought that, we were the fastest things in the world, and we were the first ones to get land on the moon. And you know what? Now that I've gotten a little older and I've gotten a little bit more involved in the secret space program, I'm starting to realize that we were already there. So there's a lot going on that is just now coming forward, and we all need to those people need to come forward, and we all talk about it together. And I'm not worried anymore about something happening to me, because all the records I kept have been filed down at Roswell, New Mexico, the UFO capital of the world, if you will. So there, my records and the files and the documents and everything are all in their vaults. And if you want to find out, contact them. All right. So I'm excited about helping to try to get everything forward, and what now I'm calling the full disclosure. Let's get the truth out to everybody. With that, I'll shut up and let you call me.
Well, I wanted Bill, if you don't mind bringing Ken into the open walk, and then we have Mike from Singapore. He's one of our regulars and has been for the last couple of years. He really listened to us from the beginning, but he just couldn't make himself known. He's in communication and helping over in Singapore with all the communications around the world. So there's a lot of guys in let me explain, Ken. You remember back when you worked with a lot of government people, but you couldn't really go out and be on, like, shows and radio shows, and then all of a sudden you went and you started in 1995. Well, that still goes on in other countries, and I'll let you talk to Mike in a few minutes, but he can't be real out there, even though we may know who he is in one level of, like, national, or what would they call it, in communications, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, so he's here. But you just think about it before you got with, now, Bill, Ken Johnston came out with the man on Mars, so to speak, and I need you to talk to him, if you will, because I would like to get through this thing where we were covering up walking on the moon. At least your opinion. I was there during the NASA days in the 60s, and so was Ken. And now we're called whistleblowers because we're sharing parts that maybe people didn't know. But I say if it's out there, and people should know it and probably do, we're just piecing the pieces together. And I'm not talking about Antarctica, but I'm talking about what we know. And maybe it's a little bit of Linda Moulton Howe, a little Richard Dolan, a little Dr. Sala, and a little Dr. Stephen Greer. But all of those are researchers, investigators, just like we are. It's just we come way, way back, and so does Daryl Sims and Dr. Bruce Maccabee with us. But, Bill, while Ken's here, and we never know how long we're going to have anybody because my husband's already passed and had quite a lot to share, what would you like to ask Bill, and how can we bring him into this open walk? Because I want y'all to talk about that movie. Was it Sidney Pollack or something? Because Ken was grilled by somebody, and it's on YouTube now. And, Ken, you may want to share that. Remember when he was asking about the movie that was made in case we didn't walk on the moon? Bill, do you know what I'm talking about?
Okay, so
maybe
is that alluding to the moon hoax theory?
Yes.
The supposed conspiracy theory that we never really went to the moon, is all staged. Yeah, I actually wrote an extensive article about that, which I titled moon hoax theory is itself a hoax, because I really see it that way. We did go to the moon. There's no question about that. And in fact, pretty much all the science you can point at, these alleged things they claim to be proof of the fact that we didn't, it all just amounts to people who are ignorant about real science.
Right.
Time and time again we see that. Their arguments are extremely spurious at best. And but I think there has been a political agenda. The first time that moon hoax theory aired on television as a documentary, it was on Fox. And I think that's significant. I see time and time again, they're pushing ideas that are clearly false, and it's like a propaganda machine trying to convince us of something, and they've unfortunately succeeded with a lot of people. You mentioned, Peter, Dr. Stephen Greer. I saw him on a documentary talking about the moon hoax theory like he accepted it was real. And I can't understand why he would. It's so obviously fake. You talk about fake news, that's some fake news right there, that moon hoax theory. Seriously fake. And I really do believe that the initial proponents were people who knew better, who were essentially lying. And they fooled a whole lot of people. And so now the people who continue to perpetuate the moon hoax theory, they're like pawns of those people who created a lie. That's basically the way I see the moon hoax theory.
Okay.
So Ken, how do you view it?
There was a movie made, right, Ken? There was a movie made in case they didn't walk on the moon, and I was hoping you could talk about how we you were asked about that, and do you know about the guy? It's out on YouTube, but it was such a good close deal. But you said you could tell the difference, and of course I could tell, and some people can.
Yeah.
The moon, but do you remember the name of the gentleman that put it out? I could any other time.
Actually, gosh, I don't know where to begin with all this. Let's go back to the beginning, and that is that we all had to have top secret clearances, and I had my total top secret clearance, and I sat in meetings even with Warner von Braun and some of the top people, and we didn't even talk about stuff that might be already on the moon. We just stayed focused on what we thought. We were being the very first one. We were in a big race with the Russians to be the first ones to get out there. So I'll get back to that a little bit later, whenever I finally have come to grips with the fact that there may have been other things going on. Now, once we were all set to go ahead and land on the moon, and there was there was an Astrodome there in Houston, which was one of the very first ones built, and this was before it was released to the public. And you may have to help me with the name on this thing here, Theresa. What was it? We called that particular program because there were hundreds of us, all of us that were.
Are you talking about the Apollo missions? I don't know which ones you're talking about.
I'm talking about the Apollo missions, and people forgive me just a minute, but unfortunately I am the result of people trying to use their cell phone while they're driving. And we stop at T intersection, and this woman's coming around the corner on her cell phone and rear ended us, and I wound up with a little bit of damage, and I have to occasionally find out, okay, what were we just talking about, and then I can get back into scope. So it's really frustrating. I'm only 77, so I've still got a long way to go. Anyway.
The Apollo program, we had it from 60, program duration, actually, 1960 to 1972, okay? So in between there, the humans going to the moon, most of us know that it's true, but the ones that you and I were probably involved in, I know was 1969, and you worked with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and Jim Lovell and Gus Grissom, Alan Shepard. I know all those names.
All of them. Yeah, all of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were during that period, folks, and he and I were in the buildings. Building 1 is the one a lot of you may have gone to when you visited,
Right.
and had been given talks. But it was designed for humans to land on the moon, and a lot of us believe that the Kennedy had put that out to everybody. Why am I picking myself up? I'm looking to see if I have any more phones on. But Ken helped train the astronauts during the space race, and it was really to get their. The Soviet Union has set up Sputnik, and prior to that, we can talk about World War II, but we really did help the world building up the planet again after World War II, Korean War, and the Soviet Union and we were in competition, what we called the space race, and then ongoing in the Cold War. So landing on the moon, that was pretty important, and it was very famously quoted that we were going to the moon in President John F. Kennedy's speech in 1962. So President Kennedy has become a mainstay and a big seller at the conferences, especially with Jim Mann. He was big in Texas, where all of us were. And he was a great researcher, and I've got him on AeroCop. And he was working with some other friends of mine in publishing and all that. But just the fact that the world that he was wanting to create was becoming controversial, competing. But we were competing for space, I guess one might say. But in the Soviets, now, they sent an unmanned spacecraft to the moon in roughly they say 1959, but unless we were up there in space, we don't know. So don't we take that for granted? But I did see Sputnik myself. I think that was 1957, but Bill, you can look that up. So we don't know why people, but I've asked Ken to help me establish, and any of you engineers that worked during those days, I worked with TRW friends and Grumman friends and Frank Borman with, why did I just go blank? Ken, I'm doing it too, but okay. So you and I need to, I guess between the two of us and Bill here, we'll figure this out. People want us to talk about this, okay? But there was a filmmaker that talked about it, but he was Aaron Rainin. He directed and produced Did We Go, which made it controversial. And Jack White, he's gone now. He was a photo historian. He tried to prove forgery in photos, and the Zapruder film about the John F. Kennedy. And I think conspiracy theories, I don't know if they were before John F. Kennedy, but I didn't have the internet to refer to back then. So it takes a lot of research to go back and look at that. But Ken worked during the Apollo missions and helped a lot of people. But Ken, you worked with all the film industry, and I think how you wound up doing these UFO conferences was not only did you train with the astronauts and train them and use the suits, just because you didn't go up into space, we're going to get into that. But we have various people that know that Apollo missions, and you got to be helping the children in education and the Air Force, and all your experience. You have been instrumental in setting the record straight in public relations for many of the old guys, okay, and working with Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Jim Lovell, Gus. They would know who you are, Alan Shepard, all those people. So the point is I was trying to make is there's all kind of people, including some great moviegoers. And in conspiracy theories, Bill, there was one guy in particular I was trying to get to that got very well known for the conspiracy theory, and you talked about it, Dr. Ken Johnston Jr. I just can't remember what the guy's name was now, but one of the senior. And now you were at the. Let me help you this way. When you were at the Contact in the Desert, A gentleman